rotate up. You ready to rotate up?
Low's got to let him play. Haliburton steps back and hits. They'll take it. The back row free for the win.
There was magic in the air in the spring of 2025. Pacers magic. Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to hear is one fit for the screen. Statistically improbable, overwhelmingly underestimated, a mere footnote in fans' postseason predictions. The Indiana Pacers would prove doubters wrong, with miraculous comeback after miraculous comeback. They were like time thieves, looking at the clock, down 7 with 40 seconds to go in overtime and saying, "Yeah, we got this." With every playoff round that was advanced, hearts and minds were won, yet the goalpost was still shifted. 2024 was a fluke. You can only beat injured teams. And who can forget that little label that was thrown around everywhere from Instagram comments to ESPN talking points? Overrated. But like any great anime training arc or Luke Skywalker falling to Darth Vader at Cloud City, this is just the start to the long journey of being encased in basketball mythology. You know, I'm not really sure what this piece is. A research piece, a personal narrative, a eulogy, possibly a little bit of free therapy. But you see, sports fan or not, there's a certain distinct human quality woven into the fabric of competition. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. The limits of our bodies versus the will of our minds. See, I didn't grow up a sports fan. You know, I wasn't at the foot of my TV watching ESPN. Give me Friday Night SmackDown instead. Maybe it was the love of human narratives and drama like film and pro wrestling that got me into the story of the Pacers. Who doesn't love a good underdog story? See, let's turn the calendar back for a second.
Has it. Force one from 60 feet away. No good. That's it. The Pacers win. The Indiana Pacers are the ABA champions. Congratulations to them.
Just so we start this relationship off on the right foot, the Indiana Pacers have 3 ABA championships, okay? Spanning from the years 1970, 1972, and 1973, just shy of a three-peat. They held the most titles in the ABA before the merger. And if you dig through the archives of some of their finals matchups, which is a pretty limited film reserved, you can see this de facto dynasty play an eerily modern style of spacing the floor and utilizing the three. Just look at this box score from the 1970 ABA finals between the Pacers and the LA Stars. Ridiculous. Pull-up threes, step backs. I'm surprised they weren't persecuted for witchcraft.
So I think we have something that's everlasting that very few people will have in their life. We have 3 championship rings.
I emphasize the fun because that's what Indiana Pacer basketball and ABA basketball was at that time. It was fun business.
The 2 leagues merged. The guys from the ABA were so exciting that they made the older guys in the NBA, either you become exciting like we are, or you're going to have to get out of the game. We're going to push you right out of the game.
I don't think there'll ever be a team like we had. I'm not being egotistical or anything. I just don't think there'll ever be a team like we had in those first 3 or 4 years in those championship seasons. It's just, I've been on a lot of teams, I've seen them, and I don't think you'll ever see that animal again. We were a very unusual, a very different team.
Well, now that we have that history out of the way, I'm sad to say that the Pacers have 0 NBA championships. Nearly 50 years of heartbreak are held within that lonesome number 0. And now our past history is faded into the scrapbook of what Gen Z titles plumbers. A joke to most people, a poverty franchise. It doesn't help that despite our amber waves of grain and small town charm, most people get the impression our state doesn't offer much. In fact, the Pacers were almost sold to Sacramento. The 80s were the true dark ages for Indy. Shameful attendance, losing season after losing season, and a gut-wrenching string of draft misfortune. Hall of Famer Ralph Sampson was literally just a coin flip away from being drafted in 1983, And in 1985, they were runner-up in snagging Patrick Ewing in the controversial 85 draft that most NBA fans refer to with a wink and a nod as being rigged. That was also the first draft that used the lottery system, but that's a whole nother story.
The second pick in the 1985 NBA draft goes to the Indiana Pacers.
The horseshoe works. Basketball is back in New York City, my friend.
And most painful of all, in 1981, the Pacers traded away their first-round pick for the year 1984, losing in the opportunity to draft Michael Jordan. But hey, hindsight is 2026. The deal to move the Pacers from Indianapolis to Sacramento was on the desk awaiting ink by spring of '83.
The Indiana Pacers may not play in Indiana next year. They may be owned by new investors, or they may not be in existence.
That was before a pair of indie-based real estate investors, the Simon brothers, swooped in at the last minute and purchased the franchise in sort of an act of civic duty. On a side note, Sacramento-based developer Greg Lukenbill did end up getting his NBA team, buying the Kansas City Omaha Kings and moving them to the city they call home today, the same city that drafted Tyrese Haliburton. Funny how history shakes out, right? After the newfound hope of their franchise's rescue, it was a slow, grueling journey towards the success of the 90s. But the Reggie Miller years cemented the Pacers as a problem for the East. The decade brought them 5 conference finals appearances and a trip to the NBA Finals in 2000. They engaged in mortal combat with the Knicks and Spike Lee, broke Madison Square Garden's heart with 8 points in 9 seconds, and came just a Game 7 shy of spoiling MJ's last dance. Damn, I guess there's just something about us in Game 7s, man. The 90s were fun, but Indy could never quite reach the mountaintop, because if you didn't don a Bulls jersey or a Bad Boy Pistons jersey, or your name wasn't Hakeem Olajuwon, you were not getting a ring in the 90s. So Jordan finally retires, the East opens back up, and the Pacers earn their first trip to the finals in franchise history. Now, who do they get matched up with, you ask? Absolute prime Kobe and Shaq, on the first stop in their 3P ass-kicking journey. Listen to these victims. You got the Pacers, Allen Iverson's 76ers, Jason Kidd's Nets. The Shaq and Kobe Lakers are like Triple H's reign of terror, just burying beloved fan favorite babyfaces. Alright, so the Lakers' glory is finally waning and the opportunity to win a ring is looking golden. Fresh blood now surrounds Reggie Miller and the likes of Jermaine O'Neal, Steven Jackson, and Ron Artest. 61 wins in the 03-04 season got them a trip to the conference finals, where they fell to the eventual champion Pistons. But malice was brewing. The 04-05 season started strong, like they had something to prove from being runner-up in the East. Indy walked into the Palace of Auburn Hills with a 7-2 record. Artest led the scoring charge, averaging 26 a game to start the season. That was before that cold night in November put a halt to all of that. Artest suspended the rest of the season. Jackson suspended 30 games. O'Neal suspended 15 games. Reggie Miller's retirement tour was spoiled, and another generation's chance at a ring had slipped away. You know what, we're just gonna gloss over the Paul George years because fuck Paul George.
Paul George! Paul George!
Why'd you gaslight our front office, bro? Why'd you make us think you were gonna stay in the relationship, man? All you need to know is LeBron squashed any hopes for our 2010 squad from advancing past the Eastern Conference Finals. And while we're at it, fuck Jeff Teague too. I know he's the podcast king with every single story on earth, but that's for feeding the Cavs coaching staff intel on how to beat Tyrese Haliburton in the finals.
That is amazing that like all the analytics and all the people they have that study the game, they still haven't realized that all you gotta do is force them to the left. I studied him and I studied Chris Paul, and Chris Paul and him are very similar. So when I was watching the Cleveland series, I'm like, hey man, y'all need to play them how we played Chris Paul. And I'm like, damn, it reminds me of Chris Paul. And I ain't gonna lie, I called one of the coaches from the Cavs, and I was like, look, this how y'all can beat them. And then I watched them switch every pick and roll and let him get to his right hand. And I'm like, and I was like, what are y'all not hearing me? Like,
just treasonous rap behavior right there. Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis gave fans another twinkle of hope as the decade advanced towards the 20s. But a pair of glass knees turned Oladipo's promising career into a great what if. He's also blacklisted from our hearts not just for turning down that contract, but really for cozying up to the Heat during the bubble playoffs while on his way out with the Pacers. That's like hanging out with your next girl before you officially broke up with your old one. Just slimy behavior. So it turns out it would be Sabonis that would inadvertently grant us the key in our franchise's future. In February of 2022, right at the trade deadline, the Pacers sent the reliable Lithuanian packing in a trade that got Tyrese Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson in return. He was the son of Trailblazers legend Arvydas Sabonis, a man insanely ahead of his time, by the way, the Jokic before Jokic. His son Domantas was a solid hand for us, averaging close to 19 points and 12 rebounds a game with a healthy record of double-doubles when he suited up in the blue and gold. But too bad for him. We fell in love with our light-skinned king. No one knew that the lanky kid from Oshkosh, Wisconsin would capture the hearts of Indy's fan base. His jump shot may not have been beautiful, but our future was. The Sacramento Kings selected Tyrese Haliburton out of Iowa State 12th overall in the 2020 draft. It seems dimes were just always in his blood as he broke the single-game assist record for both his high school and his university. And by the way, that was 17 assists he dropped for Iowa State. In his 2 years at Iowa, he averaged a healthy 15, 6, and 6. And in one of those obscure trivial stats you only really find in basketball, he and Zion Williamson are the only two NCAA Division I true freshmen to accumulate at least 50 steals and 30 blocks in their first season in school. Very specific, but hey, we'll count it. Over in Sacramento, Tyrese had to share point guard responsibilities with the very bright De'Aaron Fox, and he was averaging about 13 points and 6 assists a night. But before he left town, he had to drop his then career highs, scoring 38 points against the Sixers in a losing effort, and then a week later dishing out 17 assists in his final game in the gray and purple. After Hallie got traded to Indy midway through the 2022-2023 season, they finished with 35 wins, a 10-game improvement from their year prior. And of course, we were also gifted this buzzer beater from rookie Andrew Nembhard. Along with Tyrese Haliburton was a youthful mix of homegrown talent and sharp trade acquisitions. Miles Turner was drafted in 2014 and was the bridge between the Paul George and Tyrese Haliburton era. TJ the GOAT McConnell was signed in free agency in 2019. In 2022, that's when moves really started to be made. The front office landed Andrew Nembhard and Benedict Mathurin in the draft, two ice-cold assassins giving the Pacers more depth at the backcourt. That year also saw them trade for Aaron Naismith, who would develop into our defensive anchor at the wing and a trusty hand at the three-point line. We also picked up Obi Toppin from the Knicks, and in a blockbuster deal with the Raptors, the Pacers signed two-time All-Star and NBA champion Pascal Siakam, finally giving us a true forward to stretch the floor. The pieces were beginning to be put together. And who can forget our resident enforcer, bodyguard, and black belt, James Johnson. At the close of the season, they modestly vowed to win 10 more games. That next season, they won 12 more, and finally getting another taste at playoff action. But no one called what was about to happen. Round 1, Pacers and Bucks. The beginning of one of the league's few great modern rivalries. Sure, Giannis and Dame were injured that series, but no one expected them to be upset in the first round. If you weren't there for Game 3, allow me to set the scene. Overtime, 6 seconds left on the clock. The threat of double OT hangs in the air like a storm cloud. Chris Middleton had quite literally sat me back down in my seat in the stands with his two incredibly clutch threes to keep the Bucks in it. With the opportunity to take a 2-1 lead in the series, the Pacers inbound the ball to none other than Tyrese Haliburton. This was just a sneak peek into the theatrics that the following year would bring. One buzzer beater in a growing collection.
Pointed it out. Haliburton takes it in the backcourt. 6 seconds to go. Crosses over on Beverly. Full game for the win! one, Tyrese, the terror.
I remember sitting there way back in the cheap nosebleed seats because you gotta save a penny in this economy. And there's 6 seconds left on the clock, and I say to my friend, why is he inbounding the ball so far back? And he said, just watch him. And it was at that moment that I learned never to doubt Hallie again, and I got to see that Pacers magic firsthand. I mean, the tension and the drama was just so thick that I didn't even have my phone out. I just wanted to fully immerse myself into the moment. I also didn't want to jinx it because every time I pulled my phone out, they'd miss a shot or get a turnover. So I was just there with my hands clasped firmly on my scalp, watching it as I was just put into awe and see Tyrese Haliburton cross Pat Bev back to Tel Aviv. The jury was still out on the Pacers as being worthy contenders, with everyone pointing to the injured Bucks and Knicks squads they beat on their way to the first Eastern Conference Finals in a decade. And a sweep by the eventual champion Boston Celtics did not win over any haters, but rather reinforced the narrative that this was all a fluke. To the mainstream media, the lights were just too bright for these wide-eyed, overachieving Indiana boys. Or so they thought. It would be one word that defined everyone's thoughts on Tyrese Haliburton, and by extension, the Pacers as a whole: overrated. When The Athletic dropped their annual anonymous players poll, it sent waves through the NBA media, most notably Tyrese Haliburton being voted most overrated by his peers. Now, there were some hiccups over the season. Missing some games after flaring up his hamstring injury from the previous year, having hot and cold nights offensively depending on which way the wind was blowing, and never quite being a defensive anchor, to put it kindly. But the Spurs finished the season with 50 wins and secured the 4th seed in the East. They were due for battle against none other than their old foes in a round 1 rematch, the Milwaukee Bucks. You see, this is the part of the video where words can't really do justice the improbability of this whole thing, and this just isn't really my biased hyperbole. Take a look at this table right here. BetMGM had the Pacers at plus 6,600 to win the championships at the start of the season, a 66-1 underdog. Then, at the start of the playoffs, with Indy already locked in as the 4th seed, somehow their odds got worse, jumping back to historically grim odds of plus 8,000, an 80-1 long shot. No NBA champion in history has been ranked at that much of a long shot. Only coming at a distant second are the 2011 Mavs and the 95 Rockets, who were 18-1 underdogs. In fact, in all of sports, the only team that comes close is the Florida Marlins, who began the 2003 MLB season with a daunting 75-1 odds, and ended their year with an historic World Series victory. But odds are made to be defied, because I'm not Ace Rothstein, and this ain't Vegas. The Pacers have the Bucks on the brink of elimination 3-1, but the stubborn Bucks are trying to take it back to Milwaukee 3-2. They lead the Pacers 118-111 with just 40 seconds to go in overtime. Like the fool I was, I shut my laptop in defeat that evening. I couldn't even stomach watching the loss. And then, to my surprise, I open up Instagram and see Tyrese Haliburton standing victorious on the scorer's table.
To Green. Trent with it. On a brilliant night, Gary Trent Jr. has it roll off of his fingertips. You've got to be kidding me. And now the Pacers go ahead. 8 seconds. Haliburton against Giannis. Haliburton rebounded. Puts it in. He put it in.
Like the walking heart attacks they are, the Pacers advance to the second round in blitzing fashion. The 2024 Cleveland Cavaliers were the #1 team in the East, with 64 wins and the best record in the NBA behind only OKC. With their formidable rim protection anchored by Defensive Player of the Year Evan Mobley and the league's second highest rated offense captained by Donovan Mitchell, the world really sat back with their arms crossed this time. Oh, the Bucks were just a fluke. Again. Oh, Dame got injured. Again. Eerie how his too was an Achilles tear. After simply stealing Game 1 from the Cavs, 114-105 in non-dramatic fashion, the Pacers were trying to rip home court advantage away and steal Game 2. But with just 48 seconds left on the clock, they trail the Cavaliers 114 to 119, thanks to this soul-snatching putback dunk from Aaron Naismith. 20 long seconds pass before the scoreboard twitches. Nembhard dishes to Siakam for the downhill layup. 116-119, 27 seconds left. The Cavs are feeling the heat as coach Kenny Atkinson calls a timeout. They've seen this before, the late-game Pacers wizardry. I'm sure they pored over hours of film to prevent being in a situation just like this, but it was all for naught. Out of the timeout, Andrew Nembhard, like a cornerback, intercepts the inbound pass from Max Strus. He hands it off to Hallie, who forces his way to the free throw line. 12.4 seconds left. First one's good. Cavs fans are sweating at the thought of overtime. Second one is, whoa, did he just rebound his own miss?
Haliburton the rebound. 9 seconds. They do have a timeout. Carlisle's going to let him play. Haliburton steps back and hits. Tyrese Haliburton trying to take Cleveland's heart. It's over. The Indiana Pacers in a Game 2 stunner. Unbelievable.
Despite a revenge Game 3 from the Cavs back on our home turf back in Indy, the Pacers take the series in 5. Ayo, Ben Stiller, Reggie Miller, Michael Jackson's Thriller, Pacers in 5.
I'm going to do the splits because the Pacers in 6.
Negro basketball out the fucking ground. They didn't want to see Indiana. We're going to go for this shit. We got the NBA. We got SGA. We got Stephen A. Pacers in 5.
SGA, PGA, it don't matter. Haliburton in 5.
OKC, KFC, man, Trump bucket. Warriors in 5. Off the glass, on their ass. Pacers in fucking 6.
The Eastern Conference Finals were now upon us, the moment to rectify the previous year's sweep to the Celtics. All that lies between them and the finals' glory is the New York Knicks, the Pacers' arch rival. This is where things really start to get spicy. The heated battles between the Reggie Miller-led Pacers and the Knicks are well documented enough that there's a whole ESPN 30 for 30 on it. The choke, Spike Lee, 8 points in 9 seconds, the Starks headbutt, it's all storied chapters in 90s NBA lore. If they say time heals all wounds, then 30 years is not enough. By the end of the Pacers' 7-game series victory over the Knicks in 2024, the New York roster was pretty beaten up, seeding more doubt in fans' minds on the Pacers' legitimacy. But hey, Mr. Thibodeau, maybe don't play your guys 100 minutes a game all season and they won't be falling apart. Do you really need to play Josh Hart 47 minutes on a random loss to the Warriors on a Thursday in February? Come on, it doesn't make sense. A rematch was necessary, and no better stage than the Eastern Conference Finals. And now is the all-too-common setup. It's the fourth quarter, just a minute remains, and the Pacers are down 9 points. It's just where they want them. What people did not expect was Aaron Naismith hitting 3 threes in the span of 36 seconds. Now the Knicks are starting to get a little shaky. Nembhard continues to dog the ball like he does. A missed free throw here, a missed free throw there. Now it's still a 2-point game with 7 seconds left. What you're watching now is a moment in history.
He'll take it. He'll backpedal a 3 for the win. And oh! He got it!
Who cares if his foot was on the line? It was the greatest 2-pointer of all time. And we get to see this beautiful inbound play get drawn up in the closing moments of a very closely contested overtime. And just a little Nembhard D to close us out. Pause. After 25 long years, a quarter century of rebuilds, hopeful glimmers, and a doubtful media, our boys finally made it back to the promised land. The grandest stage of them all, the showcase of the immortals. Okay, I may be borrowing a little WrestleMania terminology here, but they made it back to the NBA Finals. In their way was the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team with the best record in the league, a ferocious defense, if not dirty, an offense led by SGA in his MVP season, and all the momentum in the world a team could have.
About Indiana, they're gonna say everything in the world about now. We ain't got business, we ain't got money, we ain't got culture, we ain't got music. Y'all know what we do, Ed?
2 games in the NBA motherfucking finals.
The tale of the tape in the court of public opinion was giving the verdict to OKC already. That was a foul? Where? Try and wrap your minds around this. In Game 1 against OKC on their home turf, the Pacers never led until the final 0.3 seconds of the game. The fourth quarter was a grind, as the Pacers would put together lightning-quick 10-2 runs, but find their momentum halted at a turnover or an all-too-frequent trip to the charity stripe. Despite these runs, OKC would manage to keep a healthy distance ahead. With 2.5 minutes to go in the game, the Pacers find themselves down 9. A Naismith 3 cuts it down to a 6-point game. Then, Nembhard walks his Canadian brother down like an absolute menace. A rejection from Lou Dort is converted into 2 more points for OKC, bringing their lead to 110. That would be the last points they score for the game. The Pacers are down 1 with 22 seconds left. OKC inbounds the ball with just enough time to stall the Pacers for a home court Game 1 win. Hassled by Nembhard, SGA misses the turnaround jumper that rims off and straight into the hands of Aaron Naismith. The world rejoices when no foul is called. Haliburton brings the ball up court with just 6 seconds to go in regulation, sizes up Lou Dort, takes 1 step inside of the 3-point line, and drills the game-sealing 2-pointer. It wasn't flashy, there was no jumping on the scorer's table, no grabbing his own rebound, no double rim bounce, no choke sign, just a dagger through the heart of Paycom Center. Now for the dagger through my heart. The Pacers and the Thunder battled it out until they took each other all the way to a Game 7. It was a tumultuous road to get there. I was at that finals Game 4 that slipped away through our fingers like grains of sand. The Scott Foster masterclass. It was truly a somber experience exiting Gainsbridge Fieldhouse that night, just like a trail of tears. It was a mass exodus of sadness knowing that we could be up 3-1, but we're going back to OKC 2-2. It was a sad night. In Game 5, Hallie strained his calf that had already been bothering him in the series. And in a do-or-die Game 6, down 3-2, the fateful decision was made to play Haliburton. At first, it looked like the right decision, with a Game 7 successfully forced. And God, did that Game 7 start out beautiful. 3 triples from downtown, and he was talking his shit. We were in store for a generational performance, until that moment that the world stopped turning. It's not even my obvious Pacers bias in saying this. There are scores of folk out there who put their money on the fact that if Tyrese Haliburton did not go down with that Achilles tear, the Pacers would be the 2025 NBA champions. Who knows, maybe it could have been Hallie on the cover of NBA 2K26. But life, as they say, is no fairy tale. I'm going to close this out with the final words of Ernest Thayer's Casey at the Bat. Oh, somewhere in this favored land the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Indiana. Mighty Haliburton's Achilles has given out. Thank you for watching. Pacers in 5.